What's up, guys? Wanted to make a quick video on our fence here. I haven't been able to put out as many videos as I've wanted to lately, but I want to at least start breaking them down piece by piece about what we've been doing out in the fields for hunting, and of course here at the campsite. Now, the fence we finished a few months ago. I originally wanted to make it a little bit more of a how-to video, but for now it's just going to have to be kind of a description, and any questions that you guys have, you know, I'm happy to answer. At least for those of you that might put up your own fence, it'll give you maybe a few pointers. I did the same thing. I watched a lot of videos, I asked a lot of people, and I kind of put the pieces together for us. Now, we decided to go with a welded wire here. This is 5-foot welded wire, and these are 8-foot wooden posts. Now, we have about a half acre here that is fenced in. We used about 12 of these wooden posts, and we probably have about 75 or so of these 7-foot tall T-posts. Now, a lot of people will say that with the T-posts they only really need to go into the ground, you know, a foot or so. That wasn't going to work for us. Our ground, especially in the spring and the fall, it's just too wet. So we really wanted more than 1 foot in. So being, you know, 5-foot tall fence, we figured, you know, 5.5 feet would be okay total height above ground. And so we went with 7 foot to get it about, you know, 1.5 feet into the ground. Now, the T-posts are spread apart approximately 8 to 9 feet each one. Now, we did these wood one every 50 feet or so. Now, one recommendation I would say for these wooden posts, if you're going to be utilizing them for your own fence, is make them maybe a little less than 50 feet, just solely for the fact that when you're stretching this wire out that comes in typically 50 or 100 foot rolls, you know you're going to get to the next one regardless. You're not going to have to tie them together or something to that effect. A couple other real main things. With this welded wire, we decided to go with this over a woven wire because we're not really going to be doing cattle or anything like that. It's more simply just to keep our dogs in, simply for a little security and to kind of just border our campsite. Nothing more than that. So weight wasn't going to be an issue. We didn't need to stretch it super tight. Now, a big misconception I found is that with the welded wire, you don't need to stretch it. I disagree. If we did not pull this somewhat to get it a little bit taut, it would have been very wavy. You can maybe see a little bit down there where we initially started out and had to figure things out as we went. But you definitely want to give it some sort of pull. We went to Tractor Supply and got a simple come along for $40 or $50. And what we did, which I never found, I kind of invented it myself, is took a T-post when we ran out of welded wire. We took a T-post, we slipped it in down and through the second hole and the second to last hole, so it'd be straight up and down. And then what we would do is we would take this wire, we'd go to the next post, we'd slip that in, and I'd wrap the come along around the wooden post and around the T-post, and then I would sit here and I would just strap it. Might only be a foot or two, but for 50 feet or 100 feet it was enough to get that pretty taut. From there you have the regular T-post clips, which I can show you a little more later. But basically 3 or so clips that you simply twist onto the T-post is enough to keep that in place and get pretty tight. There's also a little T-post tool that I'll show and try and link below as well that helps you wrap it around the fence, because it can be a little tedious, you know, putting 3 clips around every post, especially if you're going to be doing a half acre, an acre or more for sure. And bear in mind that, you know, you'll probably have to use some pliers besides this little tool as well to really cinch it and make it tight. Now, starting out, when we put in our wooden posts, of course you have to dig holes for those. The T-post, you can use one of those you know, ram T-post tools, and that gets it in just fine, even if you have some roots, which this was all pretty thick area that we cleared, so we had our fair share to deal with. With the T-post, I strongly recommend maybe borrowing an auger of some sort, or finding someone that has an auger attachment for their tractor and drilling the holes. We used a handheld one like they would use for ice fishing, and it took us down about 3.5 feet. Remember, these are 8-foot posts, so you know, typically you want to always be at least 2.5, 3 feet into the ground, or a third of the post, if you will. We also got a tip a little bit later, so we were able to do the tops but not the bottoms, but by some family members down in Georgia who do this a lot. They recommended using some Flex Seal at the top and bottom of the T-post, because you can see we do have some cracks down the sides, and it will help prevent that from splitting. And I wasn't too, thrilled with some of the conditions that these were in when I got them from Tractor Supply. So kind of bear that in mind, make sure they're okay. I hope these still last a long time, but you can definitely see there's some cracks going up and down. We did the Flex Seal up at the top, but another one of the reasons for that is because, you know, in the ground, of course, you have the groundwater. And in our area, especially like I said, being wet in the spring and the fall, we definitely had a good high ground level body of water, and when we dug those holes, it filled up pretty fast with water. And that comes to another tip that I was going to say. When you go to cement these in, it's fairly simple, and they make the quick crete that actually you can just pour in, mix water. You don't need to mix it in a wheelbarrow and do that. We carried everything out here by hand, so we wanted as few tools as possible. But a lot of water came into the holes, especially when we were getting these at depth. So once we would you know, finish the hole, put the post in, water would be filling up. If you have the same issue and you have quite a bit of water, I recommend maybe doing more than just one bag per post. We made it simple, that's what was recommended to me. But you know, if you have a lot of water, it doesn't mix quite as well and as fast, so I would just put 2 bags in there, make it simple. Again, I also didn't know I was going to be stretching with a come along from these posts. So knowing that too, I mean, you want them to be real sturdy, and these are very sturdy, but again, if you plan to be there for a long time, spend the extra money and just do possibly 2 bags if you have a lot of water. One of the last tips I would say is for your opening or gate. You might want to think about doing 2 different openings. So far, I've only done 1, and it can be a little pain, especially if you need to get out both sides, or it would just be more convenient for you. We left about a 12-foot wide entrance, and that went fine and fits in most things no problem. But if you're going to be pulling in an RV, or you want to exit, you know, like I said, 2 different sides, definitely think about doing that, or possibly, you know, just doing a double gate and making it even wider. We also had to you know, kind of stretch our driveway and make a nice wide turn in, otherwise that would have been, you know, a pain even just driving into it, a 12-foot wide gate. So another thing to remember, guys, is where you want this fence, whether it's going to be on the outside or the inside of your posts. Now when you want to keep things inside the fence, I recommend you put it on the inside, because if anything pushes against it, it's going to have the stability and support of the post. Now if you're trying to keep things out, whether it be predators or something of that nature, you're going to want it from the outside, because when they push in, same thing, of course. I also have a couple quick examples here of the tools. This is what you would utilize for slipping in the holes for the clips in the T-posts, and this simply bends around it and allows you to stick this through the holes without dealing with your hands each time, and then just taking a simple pair of pliers and really kind of cranking in to make them nice and tight. Also recommend you have something to cut, because when you get to a post, if you run out of wire, you need to, you can really do a couple different things. One of them is, when you get to a corner post here, is to actually just staple it in a few times with the metal. You know, I think I used 1 1/4 or 1.5 inch metal staples that you pound in with the hammer, and then keep running it to the next post and stretch it from the next one. If you don't do that, or you come to a point where you have to join 2 pieces of fence together, I simply just cut some of the horizontal lines all the way down. I overlapped it, and then I would take my pliers here and simply twist all of the horizontals around a new piece, and it was perfectly fine. It's not going anywhere, even if you need to stretch it, of course. So I think that's about all I have for the fence tips. If I think of anything else, I'll leave it in the comments below, and please, if you have any questions, let me know. We have done a few other projects. We've been working really hard here on the farm, so if you want to see what those are about, feel free to subscribe, give us a like. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.